My name is Hannah, and I am 31 years old. For as long as I can remember, my older sister, Isabel, was the sun my family revolved around, and I was just a small, quiet moon in her orbit. I loved her so much that I agreed to do the most profound and selfless thing one person can do for another. I became a surrogate to carry her child. I thought I was giving her the gift of a family. I had no idea I was just an inconvenient part of her perfect life's blueprint. When my nephew Leo was born with a rare genetic condition, the son that was my sister turned into a black hole of cruelty. She took one look at her son and walked away. Now, my family is demanding that I give him up, but they don't know the secret I discovered in the sterile quiet of that hospital, a secret that is about to shatter the perfect world they so carefully built. If you're enjoying this story, drop a comment about where you are watching from and hit that subscribe button to join our storytelling family for more real-life drama. Before my world was turned upside down, my life was simple and my own. I worked as a freelance graphic designer from my cozy, slightly cluttered two-bedroom apartment. It wasn't a glamorous life, but it was one I had built myself. I paid my bills on time, nurtured a small jungle of houseplants, and found deep satisfaction in creating beautiful designs for small, grateful clients. I was the reliable one, the responsible sister who always remembered birthdays and showed up to help on moving day. Isabel's life was the opposite of mine. She was the family's masterpiece. At 35, she had it all. A brilliant career as an architect, a portfolio of stunning properties, and a handsome, wealthy husband named Mark who adored her. They lived in a minimalist glass and steel mansion that was frequently featured in design magazines. My parents, David and Susan, were incandescent with pride. Isabel's success was their success, a reflection of their superior parenting. In their eyes, she had won at life, while I was just still participating. The dynamic was established early. When Isabel wanted ballet lessons, they found the best instructor in the state. When I showed an interest in art, I was given a sketchbook and told to practice. When she graduated from an Ivy League university, they threw a party for 200 people. When I graduated from the state art school, they took me out for a quiet dinner. They loved me, I suppose, in their own distracted way, but Isabel was the one they admired. For years, the one thing missing from Isabel's perfect life was a child. She and Mark had struggled with infertility, a painful journey she shared with me in tearful late-night phone calls. She spoke of failed IVF cycles, of the emotional toll it was taking on their marriage, of her deep, aching desire to be a mother. My heart broke for her. So when she finally asked me, her voice trembling with manufactured vulnerability over a lunch at the most expensive restaurant in the city, I didn't hesitate. "Hannah, you're my last hope," she'd said, her perfectly manicured hand covering mine. Would you carry our baby for us? It's the only way." Mark sat beside her, his expression a mask of earnest sincerity. "We would be forever in your debt, Hannah. You would be giving us the world." Seeing my perfect, powerful sister so broken and desperate, I felt a surge of love and protectiveness. Of course I would do it. What were 9 months of my life compared to a lifetime of happiness for her? We signed the legal papers, I underwent the medical procedures, and soon I was pregnant with my own nephew. The pregnancy was my project, my gift. I ate organic, I practiced prenatal yoga, I read parenting books to him every night. Isabel and Mark were attentive in their own way, sending expensive maternity clothes and organic fruit baskets, calling for weekly updates. My parents were thrilled, calling me a saint and a hero. For the first time, I felt like I was at the center of my family's world, not just in its periphery. It was a beautiful, deceptive illusion. The illusion shattered the day Leo was born. The delivery was long and difficult, but the moment I heard his first cry, my world shifted on its axis. He was tiny, perfect, and utterly beautiful. I held him for only a moment before the nurses took him to be cleaned, my heart swelling with a fierce, protective love that I hadn't expected. This was my nephew, my sister's son, and I had brought him safely into the world. But the joy was short-lived. A team of doctors entered the room a few hours later, their faces somber. Our pediatrician, a kind, silver-haired man named Dr. Eris Thorne, broke the news gently. Leo had been born with a rare, non-hereditary genetic condition. It was a spontaneous mutation, nothing anyone could have predicted or prevented. The condition would mean significant developmental delays, a lifetime of physical therapy, and potential heart complications. He was, in medical terms, a special needs child. Isabel and Mark were in the room when we got the news. I watched my sister's face as Dr. Thorne spoke. Her expression went from concern to confusion to a cold, hard mask of something I can only describe as revulsion. Mark's face was a mirror of hers. When a nurse brought Leo back into the room, swaddled in a blue blanket, Isabel physically recoiled. Can you take him out of here?" she asked, her voice tight and unfamiliar. The nurse looked confused but complied. I stared at my sister, my heart beginning to pound with a terrible premonition. "Izzy, what's wrong?" "This isn't what we signed up for," Mark said, his voice flat and devoid of emotion. "We signed up for a healthy child." "He's your son," I whispered, the words feeling like shards of glass in my mouth. "He needs you." "No," Isabel said, finally looking at me. Her eyes were like chips of ice. "He is not our son. He is your problem. We're not taking him." The finality in her voice was absolute. They stood up, straightened their expensive clothes, and walked out of my hospital room without a backward glance. They left behind the shattered pieces of my heart and a tiny, vulnerable baby who had just been rejected by the only parents he was supposed to have. The days that followed were a blur of bewildered doctors, sympathetic nurses, and frantic calls from my own parents. They arrived at the hospital the next day, not to support me or to see their new grandson, but to act as Isabel's ambassadors. "Hannah, you have to understand her position," my mother began, wringing her hands. "Isabel's life, her career, her social standing, it's not built for this kind of challenge." "Challenge? He's a baby, Mom, her baby. A child with special needs is a monumental burden," my father said, his tone one of grave disappointment, as if I was the one being unreasonable. "Isabel and Mark aren't equipped for that. It would ruin their lives." They didn't ask to hold Leo. They didn't even ask to see him. Their only concern was protecting Isabel from the consequences of her own biology. "So what am I supposed to do?" I asked, my voice trembling with a mixture of rage and grief. "There are options," my mother said softly. "Wonderful families who are specifically looking to adopt children with special needs. It would be the most loving thing to do, Hannah, to give him a chance with people who are prepared." The most loving thing to do? They were asking me to abandon this child just as they had abandoned him. I looked from my mother's pleading face to my father's stern one and realized they were strangers to me. Their compassion, their love, it was all reserved for their perfect daughter. The rest of us were just inconvenient. "No," I said, the word small but solid. "Hannah, be reasonable." "No, I am not giving him up for adoption. He is not a defective product to be returned. He is my nephew. He is family." I checked myself and Leo out of the hospital a day later. I took him home to my small apartment, which suddenly felt wholly inadequate for the mountain of responsibility I had just taken on. The first weeks were a whirlwind of feeding schedules, diaper changes, and endless doctor's appointments. I lost my 2 biggest design clients because I couldn't meet my deadlines. My savings dwindled at an alarming rate as I paid for specialized formula, medical equipment, and consultations with specialists. I was exhausted, terrified, and completely alone. My family, who had called me a saint for getting pregnant, now treated me like a pariah for keeping the baby. They stopped calling. When I reached out, the conversations were strained and ended with them urging me to reconsider my decision before I ruined my life. The beautiful gift I thought I was giving my sister had become a life sentence, and I was the only one serving it.
But every time I looked at Leo's small, trusting face, every time he gripped my finger with his tiny hand, I knew I had made the right choice. I didn't know how I was going to do it, but I would not abandon him. I was the only family he had left. It was during one of those late-night visits to the pediatric ICU that the first crack in Isabel's perfect story appeared. I had taken Leo in for a series of heart scans. While waiting in the hallway for the results, I saw Mark, my brother-in-law, pacing at the far end of the corridor, speaking frantically to his phone. I ducked into an alcove, not wanting to face him. His voice was low, but the acoustics of the empty hall carried his words. I don't care what you have to do, just make the records disappear. All of them. The initial consultations, the egg retrieval files, everything. Isabel's name cannot be connected to that clinic. No, she never had any fertility issues. That's the official story. We used a surrogate for privacy reasons. Yes, pay them whatever they want. My blood turned to ice in my veins. She never had any fertility issues. The entire premise of the surrogacy, the years of tearful stories about failed IVF, the painful journey that had broken my heart and convinced me to help, it was all a lie. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. The world tilted, the sterile white walls of the hospital hallway seeming to close in on me. She never had any fertility issues. The words echoed in my mind, a wrecking ball to the foundation of everything I thought I knew. My sister's pain, the one thing that had motivated my incredible sacrifice, was a fabrication. I leaned against the cool wall, trying to process the enormity of the deception. Why? Why would she lie about something so profound? The answer, when it came, was as cold and ugly as the lie itself. Vanity. Isabel, the architect of a flawless life, hadn't wanted to endure the physical imperfections of pregnancy, the weight gain, the stretch marks, the months of discomfort. It would have disrupted her perfect image, her perfect career, her perfect body. I was not her last hope. I was her convenient incubator. Leo wasn't the longed-for child at the end of a painful journey. He was a bespoke accessory that upon delivery was found to have a defect and was therefore discarded. I waited until Mark was gone before stumbling back to Leo's room, my mind reeling. Dr. Thorne was there, reviewing Leo's chart. He looked up at me, his kind eyes immediately registering my distress. "Hannah, are you all right? You look like you've seen a ghost." The story spilled out of me in a torrent of whispered, disjointed sentences. The phone call, the lies, the realization of my sister's true motives. He listened patiently, his expression shifting from professional concern to quiet fury on my behalf. "That is monstrous," he said when I finished. "I am so sorry, Hannah." "What do I do?" I asked, my voice raw. "For now," he said, his voice firm but gentle, "you focus on Leo. You are his mother in every way that matters. Let the rest of it go for tonight. We will figure it out." His steady presence was an anchor in my storm. For the next few months, I did just that. I poured all my energy into caring for Leo. I learned how to manage his medications, I mastered his physical therapy exercises, and I celebrated every small victory. The first time he smiled, the first time he tracked my face with his eyes. My apartment was filled with the clutter of baby equipment. My design career was on indefinite hold, and my bank account was draining, but my heart was full. Leo was a sweet, happy baby, and the love I felt for him was fierce and unconditional. My family, meanwhile, continued their campaign of attrition. They had apparently decided that since guilt and reason hadn't worked, they would try to force my hand through financial pressure. My parents left a message on my voicemail informing me that since I was choosing this path, they would no longer be able to help me with my car insurance, a small bill that they had been paying since I was in college. It was a petty, symbolic gesture, but it was meant to sting. Isabel sent a single, chilling email. "I am told you are still in possession of the embryo that was legally contracted to me and my husband. We are formally relinquishing all rights and responsibilities. We will, however, be sending you a bill for the medical expenses incurred during the IVF and transfer process as per our agreement. You chose to keep the result, you can therefore bear the cost." A bill for over $30,000 arrived a week later from her lawyer. It was an act of breathtaking cruelty designed to cripple me financially and punish me for my defiance. I gave the bill to Dr. Thorne, who passed it on to a legal aid society connected to the hospital. They advised me to ignore it, calling it legally unenforceable and morally bankrupt. But the threat lingered, another source of stress in my already overwhelming life. The final straw came in the form of a registered letter. It was an eviction notice. My landlord, a man who had always been kind and understanding, was terminating my lease. I had 2 months to vacate. The official reason was that he was selling the building. I called him, confused and panicked. He sounded deeply uncomfortable. "I'm sorry, Hannah. My hands are tied." "What do you mean? You told me last year you had no plans to sell." There was a long pause. "Your brother-in-law, Mark, he made me an offer on the building I couldn't refuse. He's the new owner. The sale closes next week." They were systematically dismantling my life, piece by piece, trying to leave me with no home, no money, and no choice but to give up the child they had discarded. The sheer calculated malice of it all finally extinguished the last embers of love I had for them. This was no longer a family dispute. This was war, and they had no idea what kind of ammunition I was holding. That night, I called my parents and Isabel. "We need to have a final meeting," I said, my voice cold and even. "My apartment. Friday night, all of you. We are going to resolve this, once and for all." They agreed, their voices filled with triumphant certainty. They thought I had finally broken me. They thought I was ready to surrender. They were about to learn how wrong they were.
Friday night arrived with a sense of foreboding, like the calm before a hurricane. My small apartment felt charged with tension. Leo was asleep in his crib in my bedroom, a small, innocent soul at the heart of the storm. Dr. Thorne had offered to be there, but I had declined. This was something I needed to do alone. I had, however, taken his advice and set my phone to record audio, placing it discreetly on a bookshelf. They arrived together, a united front of familial power, their faces a mixture of pity and resolve. Isabel was dressed in a crisp, white linen suit, looking as if she had just stepped out of a magazine. Mark stood beside her, his hand possessively on her back. My parents looked tired but determined, ready to deliver the final blow for the good of their favored child. "Hannah, I'm glad you finally decided to be sensible," my father began, taking a seat without being invited. "This has been so difficult for all of us," my mother added, her voice oozing with false sympathy. "Especially for Isabel." Isabel, for her part, refused to even look at me. She surveyed my cluttered apartment with a look of disdain. "We've brought the necessary paperwork," Mark said, placing a thick folder on my coffee table. "Our lawyer has drawn up a simple agreement. You relinquish all parental claims, and we will place the child with a wonderful adoptive family we've already vetted. In return, we will forgive the $30,000 medical debt and give you a severance, $10,000 to help you get back on your feet." A severance. As if I were a fired employee? The insult was so profound I almost laughed. "You think you can buy my son?" I asked, my voice dangerously quiet. "He is not your son," Isabel snapped, her voice sharp as glass. "He is a genetic mistake. We're trying to clean up a mess." I took a deep breath. This was it. "Before I look at your papers, I have something I want you to listen to." I picked up my phone from the bookshelf and pressed play. Mark's voice filled the small room, tinny and distant, but unmistakably his. Quote, "Make the records disappear. All of them. Isabel's name cannot be connected to that clinic. No, she never had any fertility issues. That's the official story." I watched their faces as the recording played. Mark went pale, his eyes darting towards Isabel. My parents looked utterly confused. But Isabel's mask of cool indifference finally cracked. For a split second, I saw a flash of pure, unadulterated panic in her eyes before she composed herself. "What is this?" Mark demanded, trying to sound outraged. "Did you record me? That's illegal." "What's illegal, Mark, is trying to coerce someone into giving up a child by fraudulent means. What's illegal is conspiracy to falsify medical records. I happen to have a witness, a highly respected pediatrician who can attest to the context of this conversation."
I turned to my parents. For years, she lied to all of us. She was never infertile. She just didn't want to get fat. She didn't want stretch marks to ruin her bikini body. She used my body, my love for her, because she was too vain to carry her own child. And when that child wasn't born perfect enough for her magazine spread life, she discarded him. That's a lie, Isabel shrieked, her composure shattering completely. You're twisting things. Am I? I have a signed affidavit from a nurse at the fertility clinic who was so disgusted by your attitude that she was willing to go on record. Apparently, you referred to the surrogacy as outsourcing the messy parts. My mother looked at Isabel, a flicker of doubt in her eyes for the first time. Izzy, is this true? She ignored her. She advanced on me, her face a mask of rage. You have ruined everything! You were always jealous of me, always trying to tear me down. I worshipped you, I said, the words heavy with the weight of years of misplaced adoration. I would have done anything for you, and you used that. You used all of us. I picked up the folder Mark had brought and tore it in half, the sound ripping through the tense silence. Get out. Hannah, please, my mother started. Let's just talk about this. There is nothing to talk about. The lies are done. You have no power over me anymore. You bought my building to make me homeless? Fine. Leo and I will find somewhere else to live. You sent me a bill to punish me? It's meaningless. You threatened me with adoption papers? They're worthless. Leo is my son, not by biology, but by choice. I chose him, and I am choosing him now over all of you. I walked to the door and opened it. Leave. And don't ever contact me again. If you do, this recording, along with the nurse's affidavit, goes straight to the district attorney and the front page of every newspaper in this city. I wonder how your husband's investors would feel about a fraud investigation, Isabel. Mark grabbed Isabel's arm, his face ashen. He knew I had them. He pulled her towards the door. My parents stood frozen, their world completely upended. You heard her, Mark said to them, his voice rough. Let's go. As my mother passed me, she paused, her face a mess of confusion and dawning horror. We didn't know, she whispered. You didn't want to know, I replied. You never looked past the perfect picture she painted. It was easier that way. After they were gone, I closed the door and leaned against it, my body trembling. I had done it. I had faced them, I had told the truth, and I had won. But it felt like a hollow victory. I had lost my entire family. From the bedroom, a small cry echoed. Leo was waking up. I went to him, my heart aching. I lifted him from his crib, his small, warm body a comfort against mine. He looked up at me, his wide, innocent eyes full of trust. It's okay, little one, I whispered, my tears falling onto his soft hair. It's just you and me now, and I will never, ever leave you. In that moment, holding my son, I knew that I hadn't lost my family. I was holding my entire family in my arms.
The year and a half that followed that night was a period of rebuilding both my life and my definition of family. The first few months were the hardest. Mark and Isabel, true to my threat, disappeared completely. They sold my apartment building at a loss to a larger property management company, and I heard through the grapevine that they had moved to the West Coast to escape the potential scandal. My parents attempted to reach out a few times with letters filled with apologies and blame in equal measure. They were sorry for what Isabel had done, but they were also angry at me for exposing it and blowing up the family. I never responded. The trust was too broken, the wounds too deep. I found a new, slightly larger apartment in a quieter, more family-friendly neighborhood. It was a struggle financially, but I took on every small design project I could find, often working late into the night after Leo was asleep. The Legal Aid Society helped me formally adopt Leo, a process made simple by his biological parents' explicit relinquishment. The day the judge declared him legally my son, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't known was possible. He was mine, and no one could ever threaten to take him away again. Dr. Thorne became an indispensable part of our lives. He was more than Leo's doctor. He became my friend, my confidant, and my staunchest ally.
He connected me with a network of other parents of special needs children, a community that provided practical advice and emotional support that my own family never could. These parents became my new tribe. We celebrated small milestones together, we babysat for each other, and we understood the unique challenges and joys of our lives without judgment. About 6 months after the confrontation, Dr. Thorne, who he insisted I call Eris, asked me out for coffee. That coffee turned into dinner, and that dinner turned into a quiet, steady relationship built on a foundation of mutual respect and shared experience. He was wonderful for Leo, celebrating his progress with a genuine joy that warmed my heart. For the first time in my life, I was in a partnership that felt like a true team. The biggest change came from an unexpected source. I'd started a personal blog, mostly as a way to process my own feelings and share my journey with Leo. I wrote with raw honesty about the challenges of being a single parent to a special needs child, about the grief of losing my family, and about the unexpected beauty I found in my new life. To my astonishment, the blog took off. It resonated with thousands of people around the world. I received messages from other parents, from people estranged from their families, from individuals who felt alone in their struggles. My story, born of pain and betrayal, had become a source of comfort and solidarity for others. A small publisher reached out, and my blog posts became the basis for a book. The Family You Choose was a modest success, but it opened up new opportunities. I was invited to speak at conferences for special needs advocacy groups. The income from the book and speaking engagements finally gave me the financial stability I had been fighting for. It allowed me to be more selective with my design work and spend more time with Leo. Leo, for his part, was thriving. He was a joyful, affectionate little boy who loved music and bright colors. His progress was slow but steady. He started walking with leg braces just after his 2nd birthday, a moment that Eris and I celebrated with happy tears. His smile could light up a room, and his resilience was a constant source of inspiration for me. He was not the damaged child my sister had seen. He was a perfect, beautiful soul who taught me more about love and strength than I had ever known. One day, I received a letter with a California postmark. It was from Isabel. It was short, and the handwriting was almost unrecognizable. It said, "I read your book. I see now what I threw away. There isn't a day that goes by that I don't think of him. Mark and I are separated. The lies were too much. I hope one day you can forgive me, though I know I don't deserve it. I hope he is happy." I folded the letter and put it away. I didn't feel anger or pity, just a quiet sadness for the relationship we could have had. I had forgiven her for my own sake, but forgiveness didn't mean reconciliation. I couldn't allow her back into our lives. Leo's peace was more important than her redemption. My life now is nothing like I ever imagined. It's messy, complicated, and often exhausting, but it is also filled with a profound sense of purpose and a love that is real and unconditional. I have my son, a man I love, and a community that supports us. I had to lose the family I was born into to find the family I was meant to have. The greatest betrayal of my life had led to its greatest blessing. In the end, Isabel didn't give me a gift. She gave me my son, and in doing so, she gave me myself. Have you ever discovered a secret that changed your entire view of your family? What did you learn about the difference between biological family and chosen family? I would love to hear your stories in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to hear more real-life stories of overcoming challenges. Remember, sometimes the most beautiful families are the ones we build ourselves from the pieces of a broken heart. Thank you for listening, and may you always find love in the places you least expect it.